Okay, I was told not to make these videos, and I'm doing it anyways. I was told not to make them because I was told the Color Trap players would not use a very long description of how things work, and it would simply confuse my horticulturist dark calling players. So we're doing it anyways. Always a good way to do things. These will be mostly unscripted, and I will not be saying many words in God because my pronunciations will vary from very bad to flat out wrong. So we're not going to do that. Today we are going to be talking about just God biology because that's a thing that I cannot convey and only I know about. So we're going to do that. I think most of my color trap players will know that power grades run off of power. They're called power grade gods because they are gods that run off of power. There are no other gods, but they're still power grades. They're power grades when they're not very strong, so they're just called they're power grade gods. That's the thing. That's what's going on here. It basically means that instead of having a digestive system where your main source of energy will be eating food and outputting like ATP and proper energy sources and having that run your brain, the power just does it for you. And in turn, you need to like sleep more and not eat food and fucking breathe better, I guess. But that's about it. Those are the only requirements for being a power grade over being a human being. Of course, when you're talking about swapping out the circulatory system and like swapping out the digestive system for a circulatory system and like respiratory system overall else, you get a couple problems. Power as a chemical takes in oxygen and nitrogen in order to build power and can be used to build other things, which is why power is a much more efficient source of energy, is because it can be broken down directly to make everything else as opposed to the long journeys that the body has to go through to build literally anything at all. Power is generally considered a better fuel source. It runs through these thick, almost intestinal sized veins that run like along the skeletal system, called power cords. Power cords just have lots of power running through them and connect to the veins that are normally there. They connect to any of the gods' horns, wings, and tails. Horns specifically are attached through the top of the head, have power cords running to them. Sometimes they do not have to. They sometimes have power cords running to the horns. When they do, they can cast spells through them. Generally, it's not very good spells, since if the power grade misses, they hit themselves in the head with the spell that they were aiming, which is not good. Having a spell casted at you at point blank range is not good. Doesn't matter that it's not of your type. It'll still hit you. It'll still damage you. It'll not be fun. Wings come in about 7 different types at the moment. There's demon wings, angel wings, mixed, bat, magic casted, moth, and butterfly at the moment. Moth and butterfly are unique, or as well as magic casted, only come out, the power cords only come up to the shoulder blade and stop. While pretty much anything else, their wings, the power cord for their wings will actually go out from their wings and continue into their wings, meaning if part of their wing is cut off, it turns to ash. That is part of the point of the power cords. We'll get back into that. The placement for the tail of course, runs down the spinal cord and through the tailbone, and then the power cord just runs along the tailbone. If it exists, it pretty much always has to exist for the wings. It does not have to exist for the horns and tails, because wings require flight. Flight magic requires power. It's called flight magic for a reason. It requires power grades require power in order to use their wings, but they do not require power in order to move their tail or use their horns. So some power grade gods just do not have power cords going to their horns or tail. But if you do have a power cord going through your tail, you can cast magic with it. And it is generally, again, not a good way of casting magic. Again, this is compared to just your hands. You want to cast through your hands, ideally. Casting through your tail is a bad idea because your tail is very thin. Power grade gods' tails tend to be quite thin and fragile, and of course have a lot more nerves in them, about as much nerves as in your fingertips, so touching them is not fun. Same goes for the wings, same goes for horns. Would be made of keratin, but if you have like weird, well, I can see them being made out of like the same amount of nerves that you'd have in your fingertips if you had like flesh horns for some reason. Like antlers, I guess. You'd have about as much nerves as you'd have in your fingertip, like in wings and tails and shit. That would be the same thing. It'd not be fun. On the same note, you can also cast spells through your wings, but they are inefficient and hard to aim. Can be done, not a good idea. That being said, generally stronger spells are casted through the wings, larger spells, because you can't quite fit the same range in your hands that you can with your wings. You'll have a larger range with your wings, so it can be used to hold a spell steady, which is often what it's used for. It's good to note that if a god's arm, leg, wings, and if anything with a power cord is severed, that body part turns to ash. That's because it is connected to the brain, and there's a little respawn trigger that, if split at the neck, kills the god. If it is split anywhere else, say at the wrist, say at the tip of the wing, it simply cuts off that limb. And yeah, you can successfully part, like, say, the hand from the power cord and have it not turn to ash, and successfully part the god's hand by leaving the power cord intact. Probably not a good idea, but it is the thing you can do. It's good to note that gods cannot eat. They sleep more. Generally more, they can often sleep less, dependent on their power and how they manage it, but sleeping is a requirement, as it's a matter of turning your body off so that you're not doing other things, because it takes power for gods to walk around and fly and cast spells, and if you're asleep, you're doing less of that, meaning your production levels increase. And you're not thinking as much, so your brain requires less power too. It's a win-win, other than the sleeping. Sleeping is not the best idea. But yes, that is the trade-off. Blood color is another thing. Essentially, how it works is it takes a strand a little bit like DNA that's coated with, like, oxygen and shit. I'm not gonna go in depth in that because I think I'll die. I could make a whole video about that. It's coated so that it's like DNA, and it reads it about 10 times to make sure that there's no failure and error in there. And when it reads it, it gives a value, which tells the body what the blood color is. There's a specific organ that reads all that. The blood color only changes when exposed to oxygen. So the blood needs to be outside of the body in order for it to appear to be different. There are a couple of good, like, rare blood colors, like gold blood and black blood, and all of that is dependent on the god's personality, how they treat others, how they react to the world. All that stuff affects blood color. A good note is that if a god feels hopeless or depressed in a state of complete irrepair, their eyes will turn gray and their blood will turn gray. There's a name for it, and I will not be saying it because I cannot pronounce it in God. Now, the thing that I think, my last point, and the thing I think that most players will not be aware of, is gods actually have 2 layers of skin instead of just the one. I think humans have 5, but they'd have the 5 and then another thicker layer atop that. It is called the Urak Revet Beg Met Kex. Long name. That is its formal pronunciation. I don't think it has an informal one. Just low-level gods will not be aware that they have 2 layers of skin. Fun times. High-level gods would be aware that they do, and would know that it is just allows them to cast magic through that skin when it's connected to the power cord and hands and casting the spells and shit. It's good. It's for that. That's what it's for. So that your skin links to the power cords directly so that you can cast magic through that. The problem is that if it is split from the veins, from the power cord, if there's no power running to them, often if the god eats something, because the mouth is just straight connected through the circulatory system because there is no digestive system. If a god eats something, it can get stuck in their veins, clogging that part to all of their skin, and that second layer of skin can rot in a case called power bleeding, or high gag K Kex. Not an easy one to pronounce either. Overall, power is generally considered a more efficient option for energy production and is used more often and are attributed to higher power beings. I hope that this helps my Color Trap players. I hope that this helps my Horticulture Start Calling players, and if you have any questions, I will happily make more of these, so please let me know.